Hello and welcome to this webinar by the Global Farmer Network. Today's session is focused on no-till and livestock, from roots to ruminants. We are members of the Global Farmer Network, and this was established in 2000 by farmers and is still led by farmers today. Our focus is to connect, empower, and mobilize farmers worldwide. We believe in the power of knowledge transfer, which is why we created this webinar series and offer multiple approaches that focus on action, collaboration, and results that showcase agriculture as part of the solution to the main challenges facing humanity. Our membership is formed by 260 individual male and female farmers from all over the world with farms with all types of sizes. Our mission is to amplify the farmer's voice in promoting trade, technology, sustainable farming, economic growth, and food security. We invite you to connect with us and follow us on social media channels. My name is Gina Gutierrez. I'm a fifth-generation dairy farmer in the Central Highlands of Mexico. Our first speaker today is Gabriel Carvajal. He is from Uruguay and is married to Macarena. He works in his country in several departments with ag and livestock production, working 2,000 hectares where he rotates grains and forage to feed his 800 heads of cattle. Some of the farming is done in partnerships with investors. He is part of several organizations, including the Uruguayan No-Till Association, and organizes a USA trip with the Dolores Agricultural Association since 2017. He's co-owner of a field in Illinois where he farms and promotes investments in that country through the company he founded, Farm Value. He regularly participates in different media outlets, including radio. Gabriel joined the GFN in 2012 and was awarded with the Kleckner Global Farmer Leader Award in 2021. Welcome to the stage, Gabriel. It's good to have you here.
Good morning, Gina. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity of being here. Okay.
Thank you. Here's your presentation.
Excellent. The idea is to tell the Uruguayan story of this webinar, from roots to ruminants. And first of all, we want to introduce our country. Uruguay is a small country in size, only in size, in South America, with roughly 17.6 million hectares and 3.3 million inhabitants. And you can see the importance of livestock production when you see these numbers. 13.3 million hectares are used for livestock production. Then we have forestry in 2 million hectares, agriculture in 1.7, 1.8 million hectares, and dairy production, 200,000 hectares. We also have 12 million cattle heads and 7 million sheep heads. And that's a big number too, because you can see that there are almost 4 cattle heads per person and more than 2 sheep heads per person too. And that's why you wouldn't, and that's why you might understand this chart. Uruguay is the 8th biggest exporter of beef in the world, because of the amount of animals we have. We are also one of the largest soybean producers in the world. We are expecting for this year 3.3 million metric tons, so we will probably raise to the 8th place also. So even with the small size, we can produce and export a lot of what we do. Talking a little bit about my personal operation, how and why did we start with no-till? This was 40 years ago. Conventional tillage, we burned all the straw, we wanted no residue on top of our soil. Weed control was made in mechanical situations, so no-till was only a thought of some people, right? And this is a typical image of our country. This is the landscape you might find if you come to southwest Uruguay, which is the place where I farm. You can find gently rolling topography. You can find a mix of crops and pasture. You can find trees planted. But this, if we mix with our weather, which is completely unpredictable, our average rainfall is 1,200 to 1,400 millimeters per year. But for example, and it's super clear, in the previous 45 days, we had 800 millimeters in 45 days, and 600 of those millimeters fall in less than 1 week. Well, knowing that and knowing the topography we have and knowing the quality of our soil, which is not the best, you will understand that erosion was a big problem at the 40 years ago, right? If you see in the picture below, you can see a no-till field where even with no-till, you might find this kind of erosion if topography helps. So our early starts in late 80s, early 90s, was through this way. Non-adapted equipment, some minimum tillage, and the no-till system we were working with was based in no residue, right? The picture in the top right was a planting of wheat, and you can see there's no residue there. The idea was the blackest, the better, because we weren't able to handle big amounts of residue with our equipment. Then we switched to this equipment, which improved a lot the residue handling, because the idea was, like the pictures below, trying to get a good crop in high residue situations. The idea was to have the soil covered. That was the first reason of no-till in our country. We realized that no-till practice was only the tip of the iceberg. Covering, feeding, listening, and taking care of the soil generated impressive benefits. So we went a step further. We started thinking in the soil. We were obsessed with the soil quality because we understood that if the soil was happy, we were going to be happy as farmers too. So these kind of things are common in our fields today. Big amounts of residue, high carbon crops. We plant a lot of sorghum, corn, barley, wheat. We use a lot of those crops, which has residues that lasts longer. We look for living roots, which will end in channels where water is going to infiltrate much better, and we will not only infiltrate a lot more water, but also hold that water in our soils. We are also obsessed with soil quality, right? Organic matter, pH, nutrients levels. We are 100% obsessed in worms, as the picture in the low right area. We are obsessed with macro and microfauna because soil is a living entity and we want that soil as healthy as possible. So this is a chart that shows how the Uruguayan farmer behaved when this technology appeared. It's a chart from the year 2000 to 2018 and shows the increase of agricultural area in the blue bars and how that increase was because of no-till, which is the red bar. All the increase was thanks to no-till. And in this chart, you can see perfectly well. This is from the survey made by our agriculture department in 2021. And you can see every crop and how much percent of no-till is being made in every crop. Soybean is 89%, corn is 84%, wheat 88%, barley 94%, and canola, rapeseed 81%. And if you do the math, you will find that almost 90% of Uruguayan agriculture is being made with a no-till practice. Why? Because we, the farmers, saw the advantages and took advantage of that. We got inside this system and never leave. This is a picture of one of my farms, and you can see that I do myself the rotation, and I try to increase the number of crops, and I try to rotate crops as much as possible. In the same picture, you can see a first crop corn, a second crop soybean, a first crop soybean, a first crop sorghum, because the idea was adding as many crops as possible in the system, in the production system, in the toolbox, right? So I plant corn, sorghum, soybean, wheat, barley, oats, ryegrass, rapeseed, as canola or carinata, I try to plant as many crops as possible because this will give me a lot of opportunities in the future to, as I said, improve our soil, improve our system. The problem of getting a lot more crops and increasing rotation, my idea, for example, is to plant 5 crops in 3 years, right? So I double crop a lot. Remember, here in Uruguay, we can double crop. We can plant a summer crop after a winter crop with no problem. The challenge is this: we are increasing the amount of residue. So we must focus a lot in distribution. And why is that? Because the following planting starts here when I am harvesting the previous crop. So if I don't spread evenly the residue of the previous crop, the following planting is going to be a problem, right? We also added cover crops to our system. We started in 2006 at the beginning with oats, and then we found different mixes, and we are using, for example, in the picture in the center below, hairy vetch. It's what we call a service crop because not only covers the soil, but also puts a lot of roots, a lot of biomass in below the surface, and it also fixes nitrogen from the atmosphere. So it's amazing. As I said, once you get inside this system, you don't want to leave. And the idea is to understand this. We don't own the land, we belong to the land. And that is why we try to do as much good practices as possible. We handle residues, we soil test our fields each and every year, every field, every year, because we want to know how the soil is behaving, and we are doing as much good practices as possible. The challenges and objectives of this system, well, keeping the soil covered all year round, as I said, that is fundamental, is key. Good crop rotation, nutrient recycling. We try to improve. The idea is to improve the nutrients levels of our fields every year. That's why we soil test every year to see how it's going on. We are trying to go more natural, right? Trying to find biological and natural ways of controlling weeds, insects, and diseases. It's not easy, and we are super responsible. So this is step by step, but the idea is to get that place. We work with nature, not we take advantage of nature, but in the good way, right? We enjoy the advantages of working with nature. We try to enrich biodiversity on top of the soil and below the surface also. The idea also is to get a better level of CO2 and water footprint. We want to use the resources as smart as possible. And we focus a lot on sustainability. And this is where livestock make its appearance. This picture in the right is super common in Uruguay. You have good soil land where you can practice continuous agriculture forever, no problem. You have marginal soil where you can plant agriculture for 5, 6, 7 years, and then you have to rotate with pasture. So we plant a lot of pasture in those areas because we want more roots, because we want the soil to take some rest. And we have also places where you cannot do agriculture at all, right? And that's where the cows enter in the system. And I like this graphic about sustainability. We always try to be in the middle of the 3 pillars, right? There's a social pillar, there's an environment pillar, and there's economic pillar, and no pillar has to be bigger than the others. And the economy, my economy, is relevant, right? It is super easy to be the best friend of the environment or the largest contributor to the society if your economy is good. But it's not so easy when you are struggling. So having the 3 pillars evenly strong is fundamental. And livestock is what gives me that chance of using all the resources we have and having a healthy economy. So we are always looking at this. We try to find the balance on what we do, right? How many hectares of agriculture, how many hectares of livestock, how many hectares of grassland, how many heads do I have to put? And we are actually improving the amount, we are increasing the amount of heads each and every year. And it has some reasons which are here. Sustainability is one of the first things that livestock production brings to my system, right? Because if not, I will have some areas without nothing, and livestock helps me in this situation. Predictability, of course, it is less influenced by weather. It's insanely different than agriculture. The value added, I can produce something which value is a lot more per kilogram produced, right? I am using a lot better our resources. For example, grain. Sometimes I harvest low quality grain, which it doesn't work for malting or for whatever. So I can use that grain in livestock, and I can add value to that grain using with livestock instead of selling for nothing. Also, the same with fiber, the same with time. The time usage, the time need in livestock production is a lot less than in agriculture. So I can use in a smart way my time doing that. And space. As I said, there are places where I cannot plant anything. Well, I can put cows in those places and I can make some value. I can create some value there. Resilience in crisis time is something which is super clear for us. Last year we had a big drought, the biggest ever I can remember, and I lost almost 50% of my fields, of my agricultural fields, because of that drought. So I started with 100 and I ended with 50, right? With livestock, I probably started with 100 and I ended with 90, 95, because the animals got thinner, of course, but not a single animal was dead, right? So it's a more resilient system, which helps to do a much better production system. And the last one, last but not least, peace and tranquility. In a moment where things are tough, in a moment where prices goes down and costs goes up, in a moment where mental health in farmers is an issue we are discussing, having something that gives you peace and tranquility helps a lot. And this it's less profitable than agriculture, yes, of course. But if you think in all the things I said, having something that gives you some tranquility is super, super important. And I think we must think in the future of farming, right? I am talking about perspective, giving perspective, for example, to the new generations. Those are pictures of my kids taken several years ago. But even when they might work in the operation or not, having that perspective we gain through the years is important, is super important, is relevant. And being part of this organization, the Global Farmer Network, is also something that gave me a lot of perspective. In the picture you can see in the right, there are farmers from everywhere there. There are farmers from India, from New Zealand, from the Philippines, from Canada, the United Kingdom, Honduras, USA. And understanding the challenges, understanding the advantages of each and every farmer gives you a perspective that changes everything. And I think the future of agriculture is about that. It's about understanding and having the possibility to see things that usually we don't see. So I want to end with this. I am convinced that we need to tell this story. We need to tell our story. If we don't do that, we will leave room for somebody else's to come and tell the story as he think it is, but it's not going to be our story. So anytime a microphone, a camera, a social media platform gives me the opportunity to tell my story, I say yes. I say yes. And the idea is that those who say it cannot be done should not interrupt those of us who are doing it. Thank you so much, Gina. I give you the leading again.
Thank you, Gabriel, for a great presentation. We'll see you in the Q&A section. Just a reminder to everyone watching, you can post your questions in the comment section. Now it's time to introduce Rory Christie. Good morning from Mexico, Rory. Good afternoon to you in the UK. How are you? Oh, you're muted, Rory.
Somebody had to do it. Somebody had to be in mute, and it would have to be me. Yeah, I'm
No
good.
worries.
Nice
Let
to
me.
see you and everybody else.
Perfect.
In the world.
Good. Let me introduce you, Rory, to our audience. You are a farmer in the southwest of Scotland. Alongside your brother, you farm 1,100 dairy cows and 200 sows. You are a trained conflict mediator, founder of the Milk Suppliers Association, vice chair of Scotland's Food Supply Chain Corporation, and founder of the Fast Breeders Genetics Project, which was recently acknowledged by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation as a useful tool to help communities thrive. That's very impressive, Rory. You're a strong believer that diversity is, in its widest sense, a just way of being. And you joined the GFN last September, so you're one of our newest members.
I am. Yeah. Thank you, Gina.
Thank you. I'll add your presentation, and the stage is yours.
Okay. Hello, everybody, and thank you, Gabrielle. That was a very comprehensive presentation, and perhaps you shouldn't expect so much from me. I'm a third-generation farmer, livestock farmer, and now I farm with my brother. On our farm, we've always had livestock. I don't really know anything else. We have had poultry, dairy cows. We sell beef. We don't have sheep now. We used to have sheep, and we've always had pigs. Where I live is in the north of the UK, which is Scotland, and we have a very, I guess people might call it moderate climate. It rains a lot. It's never too cold. It's never too hot. But that moderation is changing, and we now have more extreme pattern of rain and occasional drought. Perhaps not drought that Gabrielle or people in warmer climates would recognize, but because our plants are adapted to always having rain, we get an exasperated type of drought when we get dry weather for more than 6 weeks. Yeah, so as was said earlier, I've got 1,100 milking cows and 200 sows. All our milking cows live outside all of the time. We are a pastoral farm, so we have 100% grass, over 2,500 acres, or roughly 1,000 hectares. That wasn't always the way. We used to grow about 300 acres of cereal, but always everything we grew was used on farm and not sold. Effectively, we have always sold protein. We sell fat and protein, either in the form of pork or the form of milk. So what we are doing is taking sunshine and rain that falls from the sky and turning it into human edible fat and protein. We like to think that we have always looked after our land and our soil to the best of our ability, we find ourselves now grateful for having had so many livestock over the years, because we've extremely fertile land, and because for many years we'd mixed, what we would call in the UK mixed farming, which is both arable farming and livestock. We had a pretty balanced system. I guess I've unbalanced it a little. I don't grow any crops now other than grass, but we are adapting. We're adapting to the demand of our customer. In the UK, we are very heavily regulated, and we have a very aware consumer base. We have very powerful retailers in this country, and what the consumer and what the retailer demands, we as farmers feel very quickly. And at the moment, in the UK, there is great demand to become, like there is in many countries, to meet net zero, to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions and become what many people consider more planet-friendly farmers. So I'm adapting our business to meet that demand. And really what we're doing is just tweaking what we have always done. Like Gabrielle, we don't plow, we use direct drilling, so we don't turn the soil over, and I haven't done so now for 10 years. I'm just can't figure out how I change my slide. Oh yeah, there we go. So ultimately, looking after your farm, your land better leads to better profit. It's good for the bank account. And so what we are trying to do is grow more grass, and we're trying to do it with less fertilizer, because fertilizer is one of the biggest emitters of greenhouse gases, and we're trying to what they call sequester more carbon. So as I'm sure many of you know, the plants are processing carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, and they're sinking carbon into the ground. And so we are trying to basically grow more grass with less fertilizer while sequestering more land, more carbon. And how do you get your land to do that? You have to optimize your soil. And there's a few things we've done on farm, which is in our case, our soils are not naturally neutral. If anything, they are slightly acidic. So we apply lime, which has a neutralizing effect, and try and get our pH to 6.7, which is the optimum for growing grass. That allows our plants and our soil to be efficient, so we get more value from fertilizer. In other words, we put a smaller amount on and get the same effect as previously. We've also planted lots of clovers. Now, clovers are what you call legumes, and they are nitrogen fixing plants. So they are sucking nitrogen out of the atmosphere and putting it into the soil. So in other words, it's free fertilizer, and farmers love free things. So I love clover. Clover is fixing about 50 to 200 kilos of nitrogen per year. And the other thing we've started doing more and more of now is establishing deep-rooted herbal plants like plantain and chicory. And their root can go up to 80 centimeters into the ground, and they act in two ways. They mine minerals from deep down, and they also provide a conduit to get the large amount of rain that falls to our land down deep into the soil. So helping drainage, sticking carbon down there, and bringing minerals back up. So there's nothing not to like about that. And then for the cow, it's about giving her palatable food. It's basically giving her a tastier salad to eat, and therefore she will give me more milk. So it's good all round. We get more fat and protein to sell, and the cow enjoys what she eats more, and the soil gets healthier and healthier. And of course, all the time, the cow is fertilizing and putting back P and K, and she's spreading it herself without the need for diesel and machinery. So as I said earlier, optimizing soil health. Now, we don't have lots of big machinery. In fact, I hate machinery. I do not like tractors. They only cost you money. So I have no tractors at all. Everything I do is I use a contractor. And this is an example. This picture here is a John Deere with a direct drill in the back. And we today still use glyphosate to burn off old pasture and direct drill grass seed into it. Previously, we would have ploughed and had to cultivate, and there are lots of stones in our ground. So we would have had to lift those stones because they would damage machinery that followed. So this allows me to cut down all of those passes. In other words, reduce the use of diesel, which is a great thing. And it also stops disturbance in the top, which stops the use or limits the amount of weeds growing, which limits the amount of pesticides I need to use. So again, having an impact on biodiversity, and we have really seen a big increase in bug life, you might call it, soil health. There's more worms and bugs in the soil, and there are more insects like bees, because we have effectively cut out the use of pesticides altogether from our processes. The other interesting thing that I've done, and you heard Gina mention it, is that I head up a small genetics project called Fast Breeders, and it was started again because we wanted to be more efficient, and it has developed over the years. The main goal was to replace the bottom 75% of the genetics in the herd with offspring from the top 25%. So all our cows are DNA tested, and we set up an indexing system to match the DNA to what they call phenotypics, to the farm records, so we could identify the best cows. And then we specifically mate those cows using artificial insemination to bulls that will improve our herd. And in the last 2 to 3 years, part of what we're concentrating on is finding those low methane cows, because as I'm sure you all know, you hear lots of horrible things said about cows farting and burping and killing the planet with their methane. And there is a big misunderstanding around that, because the methane that cows produce is a natural cycling of carbon. Anyhow, regardless of all that, if we produce cows that produce less methane, it's going to bring down our greenhouse gas emissions and meet that demand, and meet the legislation that milk processors and countries and international community have to meet. So as you can see from these photographs here, if you look closer, and this is what our farm looks like, it's very, very green, and there's often cloud in the sky, as you can see. And these are our cows. Our cows are crossbred cows. So they are Jersey cross Frisian cows, black and white and yellow crossed, makes a sort of brown one on the left there. And they're out grazing. Well, they graze we try to graze 300 days a year, and then they have 60 to 80 days rest period. We calve them all in the spring. I've just finished calving, so I've calved 1,100 cows in 12 weeks. But critically, the first half of those cows calved in 17 days. So you can imagine how busy we've been. Extremely hectic. But we've done it, and it's passed. And now we're just waiting for it to stop raining, so the sun will come out and the grass really start growing, and then we will harvest lots of that human edible fat and protein. The I guess final bit of what we have done is try to actually reduce our energy use on the farm. So, three parts to it: optimize your soil, optimize the cattle you've got in the farm or the livestock you have in the farm, optimize their performance, and reduce your actual energy use. Our biggest energy use on the dairy is washing our plant, heating water, especially in a country like Scotland where it's never that warm. You have to heat the water from around 10 degrees to 85 degrees centigrade, and that's a pretty expensive process. So we've invested in solar panels, and if you look very closely at the picture, you can see this is one of my dairy units. We have two. This is the newest one, and you can see ground-mounted solar panels and roof-mounted solar panels. And we hope we have that at our pig unit as well, and we hope to reduce our electricity use by 30%, and perhaps more. Ultimately, I want to get to the point where I buy no electricity from the national grid. And actually, with time, I think we will get there. There's an awful lot we need to learn about when to switch things on and switch them off, and be efficient and use things just in time. And we have to use all available technology, sensors, and actually artificial intelligence to learn how we use power and take human involvement out of it, so that we can know how efficiently machinery is working, or electric-driven machinery is working. So yeah, that is my presentation. It's really about farming as well as you possibly can, taking consideration of the environment and the demand from the people that actually buy your food. Farmers always have taken care of the land. We don't do well unless we do, but we do need to adapt, and we do need to engage and act responsibly. And in the end of the day, it's good business. It's as simple as that. So I look forward to speaking to you all on the question and answers. I tend to be better on that. And if you want to see a bit more about some of the bigger picture stuff we've done, Gina mentioned it. We've been working on a project with our local university, who have been doing some work in Africa, funded by the Gates Foundation. And I think it's pretty cool that my cows, the cows in the video I've put in that WhatsApp chat, are mine. And what was learned at my farm is being applied in Africa, and it is helping improve people's nutrition, and it's helping kids get to school. It's making life better for people, and that's very humbling. And it's nothing that I planned. It is purely accidental. And however, it's one of the great things I'm proud our business has been able to be involved in. So yeah, thank you very much, Gina, and back to you.
Thank you so much, Rory. I'm adding our speakers and my colleague Patience Koku from Nigeria to take over the Q&A sections. But as a dairy farmer, livestock farmer myself, I thank you both, gentlemen, for sharing all this knowledge with us and the audience worldwide. Patience, give it to you.
Yes, thank you, Gina. And thank you very much, Gabrielle and Rory, for the wonderful presentations. I'm sure the audience are very happy that they joined in and they learned a lot. I think one of the things that we've been able to do through today's webinar is to show the diversity of scale, right? That whether you're coming from Uruguay with all those millions of hectares under cultivation, or you're going to Scotland or coming to Nigeria, that no matter what scale you are at, it is very applicable to you, and you can actually tailor all the techniques we're talking about to your farm or your size. My question would be to both of you, and to what extent really is no-till instrumental to you being able to produce at the scale that you do, and as efficiently as you do, considering that a lot of people still are trying to figure out the benefits of no-till. Regenerative agriculture is very much in the conversation these days. How much has no-till been instrumental to you being able to achieve all the things that you're able to achieve as farmers?
Yeah, if I go first, it's I would say it gave us a step change. It allowed us to have an efficiency, it allowed us to continue in an ever more difficult commercial environment and achieve environmental benefit at the same time. So, put it this way, I'm not going back to ploughing fields.
Great.
Patience.
Yeah.
Good question. Well, here, no-till, you know that because you were here in Argentina, which is similar to Uruguay last year, it changed everything, right? The way Uruguay is doing agriculture today is because of no-till. It's the consequence of no-till. We started looking for erosion control, and then we realized all the other things that were there, and we didn't knew it, and that changed everything. The good thing is that, as you said, you can tailor this system to almost any situation, right? There are farmers with, I don't know, 100,000 hectares in Brazil doing no-till, And there are farmers with less than 1 hectare doing no-till also. You have to arrange the equipment, of course. You have to take care of how do you farm, the things you are planting. But it is super. You can make your own suit with this system, and that is the greatest thing. It has the no-till system, because it's always important to say it's a system. It's not about planting without tilling the soil. It's a whole system, a holistic system, which changes the way you farm. It changed everything here in Uruguay.
Excellent, Gabriel. And you said something earlier. You said we don't own the land. We belong to the land. And when a farmer thinks along those lines, we know that we definitely have to preserve the land. One of the questions in the comment is talking about all these methodologies, right? How do you measure? And I think that's a question that comes up all the time about measuring, and how do you say, oh, I sequestered this much carbon. Rory, I see your hand up already. So maybe you want to go there first.
Yeah, I think it's an extremely valid question. And I perhaps should have talked about it in my presentation, but farmers need to collect evidence, because all of the time we are being questioned about what we do and how we do it. And it is essential that we collect evidence to demonstrate just how good we are. And so what I did in my farm, and what I'm encouraging other farmers to do in the UK and in the world, is to what you call baseline. So in very simple terms, in my farm, we did what they call a carbon footprint, and we used a third-party independent researcher to come in and ensure that there was integrity in our carbon footprint. And that basically looks at everything you use on the farm, all your inputs, and everything you sell, and turns it into carbon equivalent. And so my farm has, for every kilo of milk I sell, I have a carbon footprint of about 1.3 kilos of carbon equivalent for a kilo of milk. I'm also just about to undertake a biodiversity baseline. And so we're going to use technology. So as part of the baselining I did for carbon, we used a technology called LiDAR scanning, and that scanned all the above ground biomass. We'll then go on and use that technology to complemented by ground walking on baseline our biodiversity. So that is our collecting evidence. This is what we are doing in 2024, and I will do the process again in 2020, in 5 years' time. And the difference is the benefit. The difference, which hopefully is a positive difference, is the benefit I've brought. No matter how big or small your business, if you do not collect evidence, it is pointless undertaking anything unless if you just do it out of the love of it. But if you collect evidence to demonstrate what you've done, then you can defend your position. And we can then go into those meetings that we talked about when we're at the round table and have evidence. And it can be farmers who present that evidence and can argue well with those diplomats or politicians or people who are just saying, you guys are causing a problem here. Thank
you, Rory. Gabriel?
Well, that shows us the value of the information, right? I like to say that when I'm harvesting, I am doing 3 things at the same time. I'm harvesting the crop itself, I'm harvesting information, which is completely valuable, and I am harvesting CO2 from the atmosphere. It's kind of a system. And the value of the information is fundamental because it's the only way to showing that what you are doing, as Rory said, the only way to showing that what you are doing is right or not, right? You have to measure everything. We are starting with a program, with a carbon program here in my farm. We are not as advanced as Rory in his farm in Europe, but we are starting with that. And we are convinced that is the future, not only doing everything as perfectly as possible, but also measuring what we are doing to show me first, I am the first customer here, that what I'm doing is okay. What I'm doing is good for the environment, for the society, and for my pocket, which is super important. But also showing the world what we are doing is okay.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Okay, so now full disclosure, right? Your cows do poo, right? So because we have a question, none of you mentioned manure management, and there's so much with how much cows pollute the environment. You are running very, very good systems. Your cattle are in the open. Can you tell us a little about what you do for manure management? You've spoken to it, but just for the question, can you highlight a bit more? Your manure definitely goes in the soil, but can you talk about it a bit more?
I can if you want me to go, Gabrielle. Yeah, because I have a lot of manure. It has to be captured, particularly in the winter. We have to capture it because while my cows are outside all year round, they are not in the field all year round. And I do have concrete yards, and the cows stay there for about 3 months in the winter. And so I have, to quantify it, 10 million gallons, or I think that's about 40,000 cube of slurry every year to get rid of. And I say get rid of, it's not actually a case of that. It is a nutrient. It means I don't need to buy very much artificial fertilizer. And we put it on in a very controlled way. Everything is measured in and everything is measured out. And we have the machinery we use minimizes the amount of losses. So we get the nutrient directly into the ground. So we use what we call aerate. So we spike the ground, and the slurry goes down the hole into the ground. And all of my winter food, so silage, which is fermented grass, is grown using that slurry that we've saved in the winter. And I actually catch a lot of rainwater as well, because I'm pretty unusual for the UK. In the UK, most people's cows live inside, but mine live outside. I catch a lot of rainfall, and for a long time I was told, oh, you must, that's wasteful. You're catching all this extra water, and it's costing a lot to pump that water out in the summer. But in 3 of the last 5 years, we've had. I get a bit embarrassed calling it drought, because dry countries, I do not have drought like in a dry country, but it's a drought to me. And I've used all of that water up. I've used all of that slurry up, effectively irrigating. So it's turned a negative into a positive. And now I have drought resistance because I'm able to use that liquid slurry. We analyze it before we put it on, so we understand the P, K, and N and nitrogen level, and we complement it. If there is something missing or it's imbalanced, we will complement it with other manures.
Excellent, thank you, Rory. Gabrielle, before you go there, I want us to. We seem to be running out of time, so we'll shorten our answers so we can take a little bit more questions. So very quickly, you want to add to that?
Only that the system here is different. We work with animals at the fields, right? We 365 days a year, the animals are at the fields. What we try to manage is we make a herd rotation, right? We try to put a lot of animals together and do a paddock rotation. Not a daily rotation, because labor is a problem here, as it is everywhere, but once a week. And that's the way we handle manure, and we decide where to put more or less through the animals. We don't collect manure anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Okay, so it's great to see that in the audience today we have a no-till legend. Roberto Puretti is in the comment section, and he's writing comments. So if you are there, he is one of the founders of APRISEED, the Argentinian No-Till Farmers Association, and he's a member of the Global Farmer Network. They founded that association and have done no-till for a very long time, like in Uruguay. That said, I want to go to a question that someone asked. I know, Gabrielle, you said that farmers found the system. I spoke about APRISEED just to say that it was farmers who found the system. And the question really is asking whether there's government support for you for all the things that you're doing currently, and really how have you been able to practice no-till to this point? What kind of support do you get?
Well, as you said, everything started through 4 or 5 farmers. It was the same in Argentina, here in Uruguay, in Brazil, right? Farmers who got together and said, we had a problem, we want to solve that problem. I know about an option of doing that. What the government is doing, the government and investigation here in Uruguay, is maybe giving us the environment for not doing this system, right? Not practicing the system, but helping in creating the environment for a good farm practice, right? We don't have any aids in subsidies. We don't have any aids in almost anything, but we have a government who is friendly with this farm practice we are doing, and that is important, because if you are doing something that they don't like, well, you might have a problem there, but it's not the way it happens. But the real situation is that the farmers started this, the farmers improved this, and usually the investigation and then the government were back behind the farmers who were doing that.
Thank you. Rory, you have a quick comment?
Yeah, I mean, I'm too impatient to wait for government grants. So I would say there's nothing I've done that hasn't been good business. It costs me less to do some of these practices. It doesn't need to cost more. So we have had a little help with DNA testing of our cows. We won a research award for to have the cows tested. So if I've had any support, it's through winning research awards and doing novel practice, opposed to sort of direct government help. So yeah, I find the red tape of free money too obstructive. It's not creative. If you're doing it to get the money, you'll never do anything.
Yeah, thank you. And the last part of that question was speaking about transferring knowledge. I think that is the primary purpose of these webinars. The GFN holds a tremendous wealth of knowledge, and so farmers are bringing it to farmers. And that's what we really want to be able to do, support farmers all over the world to transfer this knowledge and help us. A question in the chat was also saying, so you prefer organic manure? I would rather say that farmers are, at the end of the day, profit oriented, right? We want to make profit. And if you have free manure, why not use it, right? So just very quickly, maybe leading into your final comments, we'll see if there's any other pressing questions. We can then say, whatever it is, and then Gina wants to make a quick comment. So very quickly, profitability in the system that you run, no-till, livestock, profit. Very quick comment on that, please.
Well, as I said, there are 3 pillars. All the pillars should be in the same size. Profit is one of the pillars, the economy, right? And the real situation is that is for us, for a farmer, for an organization that works in the farm and that depends on that money for doing things, is a lot more easier to achieve the other 2 pillars if profit is there, right? So it's not, my idea is not to say it's more important. No, it's not more important, but we need that profit. We are working for that profit in order to take care of our environment, in order to take care of our society. because if we are struggling with money, if we are struggling with a drought or a flood or low prices or high costs, it's going to be obviously a lot more difficult to focus in something which might change or not. We are not stupid. I mean, we the farmers know that if we don't care the environment, well, we will last, I don't know, 5 years, and that's it. We will end tremendously bad in that moment. The same with the society. We are part of a society. We are part of a region, of a department, of the country and of the world, and we have our responsibility there. But profitability is super important, and all the time I'm thinking how to improve that profitability, improving all the other things, all the other resources. That's what I do in my farm.
Great, Gina.
Thank you so much. I only want to echo some of the comments that sometimes not, regardless of if we're livestock farmers or crop farmers or fisher persons, or we take care of forests, sometimes agriculture gets hit pretty badly. But echo those comments that Rory and Gabriel and Patience, you have mentioned this several times. Farmers do take care of the environment. We take care of livestock. We take care of the soil. So we're the real stewards of life, really. And thank you so much. The presentation had both Rory's and Gabriel's contacts, so please feel free to reach out to them with any other questions that you have. I want to invite you to our next webinar on May 9. The focus will be now agritourism and how farmers can take advantage when it's suitable for them to receive people into their farms and have another leg to that business option. Because yes, we're not philanthropists. We do take care of everyone all around us, but farmers are here in business, providing food for everyone. So thank you so much. Have a good day, a good evening, and a good night. Thank you, Rory, Gabriel, and Patience. See you on May 9.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.